When my family moved across the country, we sold almost everything to make it happen. Relocating from the wine country of Southern California to the upstate of South Carolina meant rebuilding our home, one thrift store find at a time. I'm a writer, speaker, published author, and now the owner of Carolina & Country, selling uniquely designed and thoughtfully handcrafted goods to customers coast to coast. Hi friends, I'm your host, Christine Chappell, and I'd like to invite you into the Carolina & Country workshop, where the trial and error of upcycled design takes place. Watch the process from start to finish, from thrift store find to home decor treasure and all the messiness in between. I am no expert. I'm just a married mother of 3 trying to live that upcycled life. Well, isn't that a sight? My boy pushing a cart full of upcycling goodies recently plucked by my local Habitat Restore. I've been inspired by the bright blue chair I rehabbed in episode 5 and want to apply this color scheme to my front porch, which is in sore need of a makeover since I never replace the Christmas decorations for anything springtime. I find an old drawer and storage cube, so I thought I would try to figure a way to bring all these pieces together for an inviting outdoor welcome. Because the color is so dark, I spray some primer to get it ready for some new colors, but I quickly realized I would just love it if this cube had some legs. So I dart back to Restore to see if I can find legs on a shoestring budget. Turns out this $5 vintage tabletop is in awful condition, but the hardware and detachable legs are on point and in great shape. The legs and hardware detach fairly easily. It's all a bit rusty, but certainly worth reusing. Now this table has seen some life. And some bugs. Now that I've taken off all the hardware, I'm going to remove all the metal rings from the bottom of these legs so I can spray paint them a fresh color. And same for the rusty brackets. I'm getting awfully nervous about installing the legs onto this Upcycled Box. It's one of those things where you have a vision of something you know you want to change and you really wish you could just tell somebody to change it for you so that you didn't have to put the time and energy in being precise about doing it the right way. That's definitely how I'm feeling now, because I know there's a strategy to putting these brackets on the box to make sure that the legs are right. Flush, plumb, whatever the terms are. I don't want this thing to wobble. I want it to be perfect, and I don't know that I have the ability to do that by myself. That means that I run the risk of messing up, and I usually don't give myself a lot of grace in that area. But as uncertain as I am, I have to try, right? My husband is working late and I am under a deadline to get this done. While I prepare to take a risk and handle this assembly without any physical or moral support, let's hear a good word from my dear friend Amanda Cave, this episode's Upcycled Minute guest.
One of the fascinating things about Jesus is how much emphasis he put on the human heart. We see this vividly in scriptures like Mark 2:8, which says, "And Jesus knew what they were thinking in their hearts." Whether Jesus engaged sinners or religious leaders, he always sought to reach the inner life. Oftentimes we don't see what's within us until we suffer. Like juice being squeezed from an orange, suffering reveals what resides in our souls. For years, I sought to fix my own inner condition, thinking if I just do better, then I won't suffer. But how do we marry that mindset with the reality that Jesus lived perfectly and yet suffered greatly? No one goes through life unscathed, but through Christ we discover a new inner life. No matter what you're going through today, would you consider laying down all of the "I can fix myself" ideologies and come to Jesus saying, "God, this is my heart. Would you do something in here?" This humble prayer allows us to live that upcycled life, which always starts in the heart.
Sometimes we need to get all by ourselves to recognize how incapable we really are of fixing things. Whether it's hearts or projects, it's scary to admit we might not always have what it takes to get the job done right. Like this little guy, I suppose, dangling by a thread and seemingly no clue what he's doing. What in the world is with all that leg kicking? Don't worry, little dude, you can hang out there for a minute, I guess. I'm feeling brave, so I start lining up these brackets, and I give my new friend some grace and let him hang out for a few more minutes. Well, I promise no spiders were harmed in the making of this episode. I pre-drilled some holes for the brackets based on the pen marks I made to the base. I figured I might paint some little removable shelf inserts from leftover wood pieces I had, but I was running super low on my paint supply, so I decided I would need to make a custom blend color that would fit in with my outdoor space. I took 3 colors I had on hand from our sponsor, Designer & You, and made a whole new concoction. I am getting very frustrated with putting these brackets on the table for the legs. The screws are old, and so I'm using my trusty flathead, but I really should be using the power screwdriver, but I don't have a flathead attachment for the power screwdriver, so I keep dinging the box trying to get these screws in, even though I pre-drilled holes. They're just giving me so much trouble, and it's just frustrating. It's very clear I don't have the proper tools for this job. And so it's taking a lot longer. Do you want to know what's harder than trying to get these screws into the wood? Trying to film yourself trying to get the screws into the wood. There, I did it! My hands are raw, but this is as good as I can do by myself. I am covered in paint. Got paint on my nice black shirt. Probably should have changed. But I put the legs on, and I'm nervous to turn it over. It was a really big pain in the butt. So it's like the payoff time, but also I'm nervous because what if it doesn't look good? I still need to finish the legs on the table, but I figured let's just make sure that it looks good before I go any further. So let's turn it over. Okay, well, I'm not sure I like having the legs flare out, but at least it's stable and standing. I'll adjust the position of the legs later. And yes, that is a blue teacup and yellow race car. My children's attempts at helping me decorate the front yard. With a few coats of my specially mixed paint, these legs clean right up. Now I finally get to move on to the drawer, hoping to turn it into a plant holder I can slide underneath my blue chair. This is one of the easier projects, and if I had more time, I probably would have explored getting this shelf on some casters. But for now, I remove the hardware and get it cleaned up for paint. First, I spray a coat of primer. Next, I use what is left of my Designer & You Grandma's Pearls and cover the drawer inside out. I also happen to have a leftover mold for my trip to Georgia to visit the Designer & You team in episode 3, and it fits perfectly as an addition to the drawer handle. So with the paint on the drawer now dry, I attach the mold with the pre-drilled screw holes using some heavy-duty glue. Tighten the screws, and these two pieces look like they were made for each other all along. I think sometimes when we try new things, we are afraid to take a step forward because there's this fear of failure, this fear of not being able to do something perfect. And trying new things is a risk because you're never guaranteed that the outcome is going to be any good. I realize that sometimes when I borrow confidence from my family and their ability to help me with something, that I'm really just deferring a chance to grow my own confidence and my ability to get a task completed. In this episode, I really learned that you need to be able to accept grace in order to overcome perfectionism. And just like Amanda said, I can't fix myself, I can't fix my heart, only God can do a work like that. But at the same time, we still have to show up. There's still a work that I need to do, and that work is to believe God at His word when He says that He will help us He will help us to achieve that transformation. We have to sit there and do the work, though. We can't outsource the work. You know, I felt like today I was really trying to outsource some of that work to my family, and no one was around to help me, and it was really something that I had to do. And heart change is the very same thing. It's a work that only we can do in partnership with God. He does the work in our hearts as we show up and continue to make the wise choices between sin and obedience, and watch the fruit of the Spirit come to fruition as a result of those choices. And the wonderful thing about heart change and showing up despite your fear that you might fail is that even though in upcycling things we aren't guaranteed necessarily an outcome, God does guarantee an outcome as we show up and we work out our salvation with fear and trembling. He says He will change us. He is transforming us. He is upcycling us. And it's all for our good and His glory. Thank you so much to our sponsors, Habitat for Humanity Restores of Greenville County, for your continued partnership and support. And thank you again to our sponsor and friend, Designer in You, for continuing to cheer us on episode by episode. If you are interested in the products that I used in today's transformation, you can view the show notes to find all of the product links. I want you to know that our very own Bobby Shea has a killer interview on her next TUL Uncut, airing next Friday with Amanda Cave, this episode's Upcycled Minute guest. They are going to be talking more about matters of the heart, and you are not going to want to miss it. Did you also know that TUL has its very own incredible podcast? The podcast is hosted by Laura Fleetwood. At in episode 4, Laura talks about overwhelm and some practical steps you can take to take on the overwhelm in your life. If you want to check out that episode, it is such a treat to listen to Laura. She has the most calming voice, but you will want to go to that upcycledlife.com/podcast, and you can listen to all of her episodes. Lastly, we would love to hear feedback from you. Give us a thumbs up if you liked this episode. Comment down below. Let us know what your favorite part was. And don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube so that you do not miss an Upcycled Minute. Okay. Baba, what are we doing today?
Open some presents.
What is today? What are we celebrating?
My birthday.
And how old are you?
5.
Yay! That's a big piñata, Bubba.